Welcome to Humane Experience. This is Haley, and today's episode is all about eggs. Are they the protein packed powerhouse that we've been led to believe, or something more sinister? By the end of this video, you may question everything that you thought you knew about eggs. Are they beneficial to our body and optimal health? Do they come from normal chickens, or are they human engineered? Is there an ethical way to consume eggs, and what are some alternatives? We're going to go over all of this and more in today's episode, but first I just wanted to start by saying happy Valentine's Day. This is going to be going up on Valentine's Day, so I just want you to know I love all my viewers so much and my subscribers. You guys are awesome. In fact, I just got a microphone because you guys have been asking. I've gotten a lot of complaints about the sound quality, so hopefully this is going to help out a little bit. But I'm really excited for today's video, so let's just jump right in. Oh, I also wanted to show you guys my Nike Dunks. These are from the Next Nature line, so they're Nike's vegan line. It's all vegan leather, and these ones are pink, so they're so perfect for Valentine's Day. Anyway, I just wanted to show those off, but now let's get right into the video. So to start off, what do we already know about eggs? We know that they come out of a chicken's butt. We know that they're round. We know that, well, you might not know this, but I know that it is actually the menstrual cycle of a chicken, of a hen. A female chicken, just like a female human, once a month she menstruates. The only difference is hers is external. So we have our eggs in our body and then they break apart if they're not fertilized. The only difference is the chicken lays her egg externally. This is only supposed to happen once a month, just like women. But chickens nowadays, they are laying a lot more eggs than that. And we'll get into that more later. Why chickens are laying so many eggs compared to what their biology is supposed to be. But yeah, so that's kind of what we know or what we're starting to know. It's a hen's menstrual cycle. It's high in protein. We know that. It's high in cholesterol. Most of us know that as well. It's high in fat too, saturated fat. We know that. Most people know kind of the basics. So yeah, there's cholesterol. Maybe we should take the yolk out. That was kind of the old message. And now people seem to be embracing cholesterol again and saying, no, it's not harmful. It's good for you. It is safe. And if you're one of those people, you're just denying science. So I'm not even talking to those people. I mean, I am still, please watch. But like at the same time, it's like when there's no science to back your belief, it's so hard. Even studying for this video was hard because I wanted to find things I could show you guys, some good studies. And the problem is, because I also want to make sure I look into the sourcing of the sources I'm going to use. And so every study I looked into is funded by the egg industry, pork industry, beef industry. And so I started looking into it and I found out most studies done on eggs are actually funded by the egg industry. Most of the studies done on broccoli aren't funded by the broccoli industry because they don't have any ulterior motive. They don't have anything to prove. So that's one thing that I find already off the bat to be suspicious about eggs, is the fact that they have to fund their own studies. But the interesting thing is that when all of the sources were analyzed, even among the ones funded by the egg industry, 85% overall of the studies still found eggs to have a negative impact on your cholesterol. The only issue is in these egg industry funded studies, it's the way that they're presented to the public is not actually being completely honest of the findings. They're trying to sell their products. So they can take the research and then they can present it however they want, because the majority of people aren't going to take the time to go and sift through the studies, especially when it's feeding a narrative that they already believe, that eggs are healthy, that they're a superfood, that they're a perfect source of protein, whatever you might believe about eggs. And I really can't blame people for being confused about cholesterol, about eggs, about any of this, because there's just so much misinformation on the internet. And then now people trust in AI like it's some kind of god. And it's just getting its information from the internet too. And so then people are like, oh, but AI said this, like it's fact. And oh my gosh, the world we live in is just getting so crazy. But let's get back to the facts. Some studies I was able to find about eggs. So there was a study in the Canadian Journal of Cardiology, and they found that those who eat the most eggs had a 19% higher risk for cardiovascular problems. That's not really anything surprising. We all know that eggs have a lot of cholesterol. They actually have more cholesterol than two Big Macs in one egg. Consuming one or more eggs per day may increase the risk of diabetes by 60%, according to a study published by the British Journal of Nutrition. Researchers compared egg consumption with blood glucose levels in more than 8,000 participants from the China Health and Nutrition Survey. Those who habitually consumed the most eggs increased their risk for diabetes when compared with those who ate the fewest eggs. There was a review of 14 studies published in the Journal of Atherosclerosis. What they found was that those who consumed the most eggs increased the risk for diabetes by 68%. That's a huge finding. And another review found similar results, a 39% higher risk of diabetes in people who eat 3 or more eggs per week. That's basically 40% to 70% higher risk. And that is crazy, actually. Like, I always hear about the link between heart disease and cholesterol and heart disease and eggs. Diabetes is like, I never really hear about that with eggs. I do hear about it with meat quite a bit. And so I think it just has to do with the saturated fat aspect. Eggs are 60% fat and they do contain a lot of saturated fat. Same with meat and dairy. And so, yeah, a lot of the main findings of this was just things we've already known, like things we already know, but I feel like it needs to be brought up again because the world is going crazy. Everyone's listening to grifters online, basically, and getting into the carnivore trend and the tallow and increasing the saturated fat that our country worked to try to get people to pull back for years and years. We've tried to get people to decrease their saturated fat intake and nobody was listening. If they would rather listen to someone online who gets paid to be like super controversial and say the opposite of what you're told to do. I did find something kind of interesting. It's from United Egg Producers, and they were saying per capita consumption of eggs has increased 15% in the past 20 years. So people are eating more eggs than ever, and we have more heart disease and diabetes than ever. And I've had people say to me, no, actually, I've heard cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease. And I think people are just getting so misinformed because they hear like, oh, there's the HDL, the good cholesterol, and then there's this other LDL, and that's what we don't want. But like maybe we need a little, when the truth is we don't need any. Our bodies actually produce our own cholesterol. That's why 9 years into being vegan, my brain still works. Some of you might disagree with me on that, but the point is I'm here, I'm breathing, I'm moving, I'm walking every day. I work a full-time job, run this channel, as well as many other things, and I have not passed out on the pavement and died yet. I don't rely heavily on stimulants and caffeine like so many people do. I just get my energy from my foods. I make sure to fuel up on carbohydrates and, I don't limit myself in any way. I get what I need. But what that one of those people told me, I think it was honestly just a troll online I was arguing with at one point, but he was saying that cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease, and or maybe it was saturated fat, one of the two. And I was like, okay, well, if saturated fat and cholesterol don't cause heart disease, then what does? And he tried to say sugar, and I'm just like, how? Like, where are you getting this from? Our body, it uses sugar, it converts sugar. There's no studies to show that. And so it doesn't cause these plaquey buildups like with the unnatural fats or the fats our bodies really aren't like designed for. What's interesting is you can give a carnivorous animal or like a true omnivore like a dog, you can give them unlimited saturated fat and unlimited cholesterol, and they will never develop atherosclerosis. There was a study I researched a while back where they fed unlimited cholesterol to dogs and they did not get heart disease. And then they fed the cholesterol to rabbits, and I think there might have been other animals, but the only one I remember is the rabbits out of the herbivore animals. And the rabbits developed atherosclerosis, which is the precursor for heart attacks and heart disease, and then the dogs didn't. And so you can see that animals who are designed for eating plants, we produce our own cholesterol. We don't need dietary cholesterol, and anything extra in our system is automatically causing harm. Whereas when you give it to a carnivorous animal, it has no effect because they're designed to be eating high cholesterol foods. We are not supposed to be dying in our 60s, our 70s, our 80s of horrible illnesses. There's people dying in their 50s and suffering even longer. So it shouldn't be like this. It is unnatural, and it's because we're eating such an unnatural diet. We've taken this survival food that's really only meant for, like, I think the only natural predators are like reptiles and like other birds or something like that. It's not like you don't see monkeys eating eggs. I kind of look towards monkeys as a guide because it's just like, supposedly we evolved from monkeys and our DNA is most similar to monkeys. So it's like you don't see monkeys eating eggs or really like any other mammals. And sure, it could be a good survival option. Like it'll give you calories, sure. But is it optimal for our health? Or have we just been convinced that it's optimal for our health because these companies are able to profit billions of dollars every year because they're using slave labor? Why in 2026 is it still acceptable to use slave labor and to pay for things that were made by slaves? And if anyone's offended at me calling animals slaves or chickens slaves, that's exactly what they are. So you're just offended at me for calling them what they are. They're owned. Animals in the farming system, they're owned. They're property. They're auctioned off, just like slaves were. They're given tags, they're given numbers, not even names. And then what do? Their whole life is either free labor, laying the eggs, like being milked, essentially being molested their entire life for dairy cows. It is so freaking sad. And then, we enslave animals in so many different ways. And to not call it slavery is just not calling it what it is. What would you call the monkeys who, when you buy Thai coconut milk, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of it comes from monkey slaves as well. And what would you call the monkeys who are kept in chains, made to pick the coconuts for these farmers who are then going to profit off them? And we see farmers as like, oh, these are such good, wholesome people. They're supporting the community. They're supporting the community on slave labor. You want to support your community, grow something for them, make something, create something. Do not use and exploit another being. But it's a great business model because they're able to make a lot of money doing it and deceive a lot of people into eating something that was never meant to be a staple of our diet, and now it's being consumed every day. The American diet actually used to be like the standard breakfast was grains, and when people started to shift towards the eggs and the bacon, it was during a period of time when the Rockefellers, they were trying to discredit natural medicine. They had found a way to make money off of these oil mining rigs by making petroleum and selling them to the medical industry. And now that's become like the entire medical industrial complex is kind of based around that. But it started with, yeah, first discrediting natural healers, and then there were actually hundreds of doctors that were paid to write articles saying that eggs are healthy, eggs are part of a good breakfast, and um, that's kind of when eggs started to be pushed. I can't remember exactly what year, but it was sometime in the early 1900s. So just go and do your own research on that. Try. I mean, it's pretty like hidden, that information, honestly. It's hard to find. Another thing I found in my research was about the link between eggs and the C word. I've been told or heard that you're not supposed to say it on YouTube, so maybe I won't say it just to be safe. But eating eggs may also increase the risk of developing certain types of C. One meta analysis combined the results of 55 studies and over 2.7 million people found that each additional egg eaten per day increased the risk of them dying from cancer by 13%. One study found that men who ate 2.5 or more eggs per week had an 81% increased risk of lethal prostate cancer when compared with men who consumed less than half an egg per week. Eggs may increase the risk of other cancers such as ovarian, breast, and colon cancer. For ovarian and breast cancer, that makes a lot of sense because research indicates that egg yolks can have between 521 to 1,352 picograms per gram of estrone and 62 to 273 per gram of estradiol. For context, a single birth control pill may contain around 25,000 pg of estrogen, highlighting that while eggs do have estrogen, the amounts are relatively low compared to pharmaceutical sources. I don't know why they even need to add that. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't have as much estrogen as a birth control pill. It still has a lot of estrogen compared to literally any other food. People get really confused by the phytoestrogen thing because they'll see like, oh, there's such amount of phytoestrogen in soy, but phytoestrogens are between 100 to 1,000 times weaker actually than the mammal estrogens, like human estrogen. And there's certain mammals like cows and horses, and they're bigger than us. Their estrogen is actually even stronger than ours. So there's a lot that gets missed when it comes to the phytoestrogens versus the estrogen, as well as the fact that phytoestrogens have actually been found to decrease total estrogen in the body because they attach themselves to the estrogen receptors while being significantly less strong than the human estrogen. Versus when you're consuming estrogen that comes from a chicken or a cow, you're not getting that effect of helping the excess out of your body. You're just overwhelming your body with even more estrogen. That's something that you should do your own research into as well. Soy has been found to be very preventative for breast cancer because it does help your body to release extra estrogens out of the body by attaching to those receptors. And I think phytoestrogens are a part of the reason why plant foods are so healthy. So maybe I'll do an entire episode all about phytoestrogens. If you want me to talk more about phytoestrogens because I've done a lot of research on them, then please drop it in the comments and I will definitely make a video on that. But we'll continue on. We've touched on the health topics of the eggs, the saturated fat, the cholesterol. We didn't really touch on the fact that they don't have any fiber at all. So maybe we should touch on that really quickly just because fiber is so important for your digestion, for your overall health, because it does build the microbiome in our gut, which actually most of the serotonin that you have is produced in your gut. So if you're not eating enough high fiber foods, not getting a wide variety of fiber, your brain is going to suffer. You're not going to feel happy. You might struggle with depression, anxiety, brain fog, mental fatigue, all of the above because you are not getting enough fiber. And then also some recent research has actually started to come out showing that fiber is essential for muscle growth. So a lot of people don't know this. They think it's just about the protein, but actually fiber is really important as well. And when you eat foods that contain virtually no fiber or zero fiber in the case of eggs, that's very constipating for your body. Whereas when you eat foods that are like fruits, grains, plant-based foods, they digest much quicker and leave your body much quicker. So that's another thing, is the fiber is super important as well, and you're completely missing out on that when you consume eggs. Now, I touched in the beginning a little bit about how a egg is a hen's menstruation cycle. I touched on how we were going to talk about if chickens now are natural chickens, if they're normal chickens, if there's been some human intervention in the way that chickens are today. So it makes a lot of sense that eggs are a menstrual cycle because they're completely packed full of estrogen. And the internet's gonna be like, oh, it's not as much as a birth control pill. It's still more than what you want in your human body. We do not eat our own periods. We do not eat each other's periods. Why are we eating a hen's period? And why is she having her period every day? Isn't it supposed to be once a month? What if I told you that the chickens that live in farms, whether it's a small pasture raised farm, whether it's a cage free farm, whether it's a factory farm, all of these chickens have one thing in common. They have been selectively bred, and over many, many years, but not that many years, a relatively short amount of time in the span of evolution, humans have been selectively breeding these animals, and we have genetically modified them to the point where they are laying eggs every day. Now, on top of that, there are different things that farmers will do to stimulate more egg production. The stressful environments, not having any space, walking all over each other, all of that stress, it actually ramps up their hormones and it leads them to produce more eggs. On top of that, they leave the lights on sometimes 24/7 in these factories to ramp up the egg production. It tricks the chicken's brain into thinking it's daytime all the time, and it tricks their hormones. But the sad thing is that chickens don't last nearly close to their natural lifespan in the egg industry. They are killed after only a few years because they can't sustain a life like that with how poorly they're treated and the way their bodies have been engineered. It causes them to have a lot of nutrient deficiencies. So, calcium deficiency is a huge problem for chickens that are living on farms and farm chickens because they are using so much of their body's calcium to produce these eggs every day that they were never designed to make for us. We have literally taken living beings and manipulated them into machines for our use. But these are beings who have feelings just like we do and have the capability to make their own decisions. And we're treating them like just machines, and it's disgusting. It's very disgusting. People will say, oh, you're just taking the eggs though, it's not hurting them, they don't need them. They actually do. Like I said, they get so many nutrient deficiencies from losing all this calcium. If you feed a hen back her own egg, throw it on the ground, a lot of times they'll eat it. If you have a rescue chicken and she's laying eggs and she doesn't want them, she's not doing anything with them, and you're gonna eat that egg, it's like, so I'm like, I really don't know if I care to argue with you about it at that point. Like, I'm still gonna say it's gross, it's menstruation, but I'm not gonna stop you from eating it at that point. But most people who have their own chickens are not getting rescue chickens. Most rescue chickens don't even lay eggs anyway. They are buying chickens from breeders. Now, what happens before they get that hen from a breeder? Well, the first step is that in these hatcheries where the hens come from, there are male chicks and there are female chicks hatching. And right after they hatch, they get sexed. So they get put on two different conveyor belts, typically, is what happens. And one is the male chicks and one is the female chicks. Okay, so the ones that are on this male conveyor belt, they are immediately dropped down into a giant blender and they are ground up alive. The other practices include suffocation inside of large plastic bags. None of it is pretty though. And then on that other conveyor belt with the female chickens, they get to live because they're going to be useful to the farmer. But there are some things done to them too, some mutilation. They get their beaks burnt off with a metal, on a hot piece of metal. They push up their face and burn their beaks off. So that way they can't peck at each other when they're stressed out in these crammed environments. And then the other thing people tell me is like, oh, well, I buy cage free. Have you been to the farm? Have you actually been to the farm where you're buying your eggs from? Because otherwise it doesn't mean shit. I'm sorry, but advertisers can say literally whatever they want. And you know what? A lot of times these labels, like the organic labels, the like on the dolphin safe tuna, like the dolphin safe labels, the companies have to pay those labels in order to put it on their can. So do you think that the company cares whether they're actually, killing dolphins on their boat? Or do you think the company actually cares how many square feet they have per chicken? Or do they just care that, like, oh, I can get a check every year from this company now because they're putting my label on it? Just be a little bit skeptical because everyone's obviously going to try to advertise their product in the best way possible. But if you know that there's even a 1% chance that you could be contributing to something horrible, then why risk it? Why risk it when it's something that you don't even need? We don't need these things. Oh my gosh. You guys are watching me lose my mind right now. This will just be the evolution of insanity, of Haley losing her mind. So I've really racked my mind with, is there an ethical way to eat eggs? And my answer might surprise some people because I am what a lot of people would consider an extreme vegan. But I would say, like in the scenario I posed earlier, if you have a rescue chicken and she lays eggs and she don't give a fuck about those eggs and you've tried feeding her those eggs and she doesn't want them, I think that's a situation where you could say it's ethical to eat these. Is it healthy? I am going to say no. There's not ever a scenario where eating eggs is healthy. But, what is healthy is tofu. And when I went vegan, I started making so many tofu scrambles because I always made scrambled eggs when I wasn't vegan. It was like the easiest thing for me to cook for some reason when I was a teenager. That was like, I can make scrambled eggs. But I just started making scrambled tofu instead, and it really wasn't a big difference. I just scrambled up the tofu in a pan and throw some seasonings on it, and boom, you're going to get more protein from tofu. It's going to have a higher overall nutrition count in the tofu. You're going to have some fiber in the tofu, thank God, because there's none in that damn egg. You don't want that egg. You want this tofu, this beautiful tofu scramble over here, the golden turmeric. If you want to make it look like an egg, just add a little turmeric. That's what you want. You don't want the menstrual cycle of a tortured hen who was crammed in either a shed or a cage for their whole life. You don't need it. And while we're on the protein subject, because that's the main reason I hear people say why they eat eggs is because it's such good protein. Did you know that a potato has more protein in it than an egg? Even I was surprised when I found this out. And then I put them side by side in Chronometer, and you always hear eggs are so nutrient dense. Why is a potato more nutrient dense than an egg? What reality am I living in? Even I have been lied to so much. Even I am unconditioning myself every day to think like plant foods are lower in protein. And then you actually put them side by side, and a lot of the time, the plant foods have a similar amount of protein, if not more protein than the animal foods. And then people will say, oh, it's not bioavailable. And then they'll do these studies where they put athletes on a plant-based diet versus a healthy omnivorous diet, and the muscle gain it's exactly the same as long as they're having the same amount of protein. So this whole bioavailability thing of plant proteins being less absorbable. It's really just, it's just talk. It's not actually backed up by results. The other thing we hear a lot about is incomplete proteins. What if I told you there's no such thing as an incomplete protein? Every single plant food has all of the essential amino acids. Even I thought that proteins were incomplete for years as a vegan. I would be pairing my beans and my rice, like, oh, this is how I get a complete protein. I thought quinoa is the only complete protein. It's it's a lie. It's when they look at the amino acid breakdowns and they see, oh, these ones are lower in this specific amino acid than animal products, but then they're higher in this other one, and people kind of just make the assumption that the amino acid profile in meat and animal products is superior, and therefore that whatever plants have the most similar amino acid profile as flesh, basically that's the ideal protein. Protein, I could do a whole episode on protein too, and I probably will at some point. But the thing is, I don't really like talking about nutrition too much because I'm not a nutritionist. I've thought about it. I thought about becoming a nutritionist, but I would have to take a plant-based nutrition course because I don't want to go and get indoctrinated by all the fucking lies, and I don't want to work as like a dietitian for a hospital where I have to tell people to eat the things that are going to make them sick, because morally that would not sit right with me. And I do care a lot about health, but I mostly just care about the animals. And I'm starting to realize that showing people, telling people, explaining, giving them the research and the proof, the facts, just showing it, walking the talk, like that's some of the most powerful activism you can do for the animals. And also, at the end of the day, most people don't give a shit about animal rights, but they do care about their own health. So if you could use your own health to help you give a shit about animals, I'll accept that. I'll take it. I'll take anything. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point. This video has gone on for a long time, and I would honestly love to do like a whole other video about eggs because there's so much more misinformation about eggs as well. Like there's certain things like the choline in eggs, certain things that are considered healthy, but I have actually heard can be very damaging and very the opposite of healthy. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll do more episodes on eggs, but yeah, let me know what topics you want to hear me talk about. And I hope you have a happy Valentine's Day. I hope you have somebody that you love. And if you don't have anybody to love, just love yourself this Valentine's Day. Or something that would be amazing to do is you could go to the animal shelter and you could bring home an animal because they will love you so unconditionally. And having a cat has been such a blessing in my life. So I didn't choose to go pick her out. She just came to me. But if you have it in your heart, adopt a cat or a dog or a gerbil or a chicken from a farm or rescue a pig. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Maybe just go kiss your boo. We're freestyling now. What you gonna do?